What a great time it is for you to join us in Hyphens Haven, the space for multi-hyphenate artists who work on stage and off, in front of the camera and behind the scenes. We share our paths to becoming who we are. Today's episode centers on a documentarian for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and co-owner of the independent film company, the Horne Brothers, LLC. His career has taken him around the world to capture the human experience through his lens. He is a two-time Emmy Award winning producer and Edward R. Murrow recipient for the short documentary, The Imperfect Alibi, the story of how a journalist's investigation led to the freedom of a man wrongfully accused of a double murder in rural Georgia. His drive and commitment to the truth and humanity through journalism and documentaries are evident in the work he's produced in his 25-year career. So I am so happy to introduce to you the multi-hyphenate artist, Ryon Horne. Hi, Ryon. How are you?
Hello there. How you doing, Ms. J? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So as we want the audience to understand the journey that you're on, we always begin at your foundation. So can you share with us your parents and what were their professions, their names, and where are you from?
So I was born in New Jersey, Patterson, New Jersey, and we moved to South Florida. So like my adolescence years, I don't remember a whole lot in Jersey, but my adolescence years where I grew up and became a young man and had a vision of what I wanted to be in life. All that took place in South Florida. My parents are right behind my shoulder here. That's let's see, that's Monica Horne. That was my mom, and that's my dad, Alan Horne, and those are my two brothers up there, Byron and Tyson, who I co-own the Horne Brothers with. So those are my parents, Monica Horne, who was born in Austria. So I'm a first, that makes us a first generation Americans on my mom's side. And my dad, he was from Jersey. He's just brother from Jersey. You know what I'm saying? They called him Big Al. He's just football player from Jersey. That's all. But he was a good guy. He was well known. He just never met a stranger. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everybody loved him and his personality, and he was always serving people. Up until the day he died, he served people. That's all he did. And my mom was just her boys were everything. She taught me the truth behind family and working hard. Like, those are the two things that she knew. It was like she worked hard and she took care of her family. And so those are the foundations of where I come from, of how I was built and how I was raised and stuff from my two crazy but awesome parents. And then there was a bunch of other people in my life, like mostly women. Like, I am who I am because of women, not because of men in any way. Like, there's nothing taught to me by a man that has made me this person. You know what I'm saying? It's all women, whether it's my aunts, whether it's my grandmothers, whether it's my wife of 20 years, my daughters, my three girls, they teach me every day. My stepmother, the woman who introduced me to journalism and documentaries when I was in 7th grade, who got me into journalism. Her name is Audrey, Dr. Audrey Robillard. Just my whole everything of who I am is based off the knowledge that was put into me from a woman. And so that's who I am, Ryon Horne.
Okay, and family is definitely so important to our foundation. I want you to think about a particular childhood memory. Did it include a holiday, or what was it like? Share with us.
That like create, like, speaking of, like,
Just a particular
kind of molded me.
childhood. It's like, oh, this is a great moment. It's something you still remember.
Oh man, there's so many. Oh man, there's so many childhood memories. I guess as a kid, so just it might sound sad, but it was a fundamental moment in my life. Was we it was kind of around the time my parents broke up, and I have two brothers, Byron and Tyson Horne. And Tyson is oldest, and he's like 6 years older than me. So he was kind of like, by the time he's 16, and I'm like barely 12 years old and stuff, and my other brother, no, actually when he was 16, shoot, I was 10 years old. And then my middle brother Byron, who is 3 years older than me, he's 13. So I was really, when the parents kind of broke up, they were like kind of teenagers doing their thing, and I was still kind of like trying to figure things out and stuff. And so I'll never forget the time that my dad came to pick up my middle brother Byron, because he was acting a fool. He was, my mom was trying to raise the three of us by herself, and he was just acting a fool as a 13-year-old kid and stuff, and I'll never forget that day, because my dad came to pick him up, and my grandmother was with him, and my dad's mom, and it was just like this weird ending of something, right? And I never forget my grandmother praying in the house, because and her prayer was to keep the three of us together, in the sense of like not allowing the space between us to like separate us. What I'm saying? She was just praying about like, Lord, keep the boys together, and let them, it was just like one of them old Southern grandma prayers, what I'm saying? And that never forget me. And I never forget that. And I remember I literally remember my brother walking out the house, Byron walking out the house. And that stuck with me my entire life, because to this day, us being all in our 40s, except for Tyson, he older, he like 50 something years old now, so he old. But but that prayer, I feel like, was the foundation of me and my brothers still working together to this day. And like, our lives are so intertwined with each other. It's dependent of each other almost. What I'm saying? Like, our kids are very close together, and we moved with each other. We lived in the same cities, and it was just like our I just feel like that prayer was the base and the glue that helped me and my brothers be together and create what we have over the past 20 years as a film production company. So if you ask me, that's a memory I'll never let go. Is that day my grandmother prayed, Mady Scales. She prayed for us that day.
Amen. And prayer is also important. I truly believe it is the way to move ahead in those spaces where you just need a divine word.
Oh yeah.
And prayer can help you get there. So let's go to your early learning days. I love to make sure that we acknowledge our school teachers that have helped us along the way. Was there a particular time between your elementary, your middle school years that a teacher saw something in you and wanted to love on you for that particular talent?
Oh, that's the easiest, and pretty much everybody knows the story who knows me deeply. It's like I said, Audrey Robillard. Her name at the time was Audrey Samuels. Everybody called her Miss Samuels, and she was the at the time. This is a long time ago, in the 80s. Well, no, actually, no, I take that back. This is like in the early 90s. I was in middle school, 6th, 7th grade, and everyone Black in the school wanted to be in her class, like, because she was unapologetically Black. She's from Jamaica. She was the first time I ever saw a teacher wore dashikis or African garbs, or any type of African culture dressing in school. It was the first time I ever seen anyone saw this. She was very boisterous on kids who just didn't act right and whatever. And it was, and this again, she was at the time just the librarian, because she was still going to college and she was still working school and stuff like that. But she had this class called photography and research. And everybody wanted to be in this class because you learned about photography, you learned about recording and video and writing, and that's what you learned in this class. And so I was fortunate enough to get into her class in 7th grade. And I, at that time, was introduced to, I was still a knucklehead, and I had friends who I was always running behind, and I would get in trouble here and there. And I remember, I'll never forget, in 7th grade, she handed me, this is in Florida, y'all. She handed me, keep that in mind when I say that, this is in Florida. She handed me the autobiography of Malcolm X, which was in that library. This was Perry Middle School. And she handed me the autobiography of Malcolm X. And she said to me, I'm going to fail you in my class if you don't read this book by the end of Christmas. And this was beginning of the year. So I read the book, and my life was changed after I read that book. I had a complete different understanding of Blackness and being mixed and being, half white and half Black. And I had a different understanding of forgiveness and different understanding of achievement and how important it was for me to achieve and how it's going to be harder for me. I learned all this stuff from that book. And then she put a camera in my hand that same year, that same fall. And we were doing just different things. So this had to be about 92, because it was around the time of the Rodney King videos and the riots in LA. So I guess this was like 92, whenever that happened, 91, 92. And I did this story about racism, as growing up with racism in Florida and what that meant to a kid my age, and she walked me through it. I had to write a script. I had to pick my shots, and we shot it at the school. And we had to edit it. And back then we had the big VHS tapes, and I had the 2 cameras, 2 VCRs, and I'm editing this video, and I'm also talking about civil rights. And so this is the first time I was introduced to the Eyes on the Prize docuseries, and I'm using footage from that. And I was introduced to John Lewis and what happened on Bloody Sunday. And I'm like, this is all in the 7th grade.
In Florida.
And I learned this all in 7th grade, going to 8th grade. And so, but 7th grade was when I first started really getting into it. Editing stuff, creating graphics on an Apple computer, which ultimately I've never worked on any other type of computer again for the rest of my life. I'm only worked on Apple computers because of this teacher. And so I did all that, and I learned, that's where I learned journalism. That's where I learned about journalism. Bloody Sunday introduced me to the power of journalism, how that was from that report was what introduced America to how bad Black people were really treated by officials, not just KKK or white people in the South, but by officials, people with authority, and because of journalists, and so that woman, Audrey Samuels, Miss Samuels, Audrey Robillard, she became a doctor, became a principal, became a school superintendent. She was incredible. She introduced everything to me and to become what I am today. And she's also happened to be the grandmother of my oldest daughter. That's a different story. But I was determined that this woman was going to forever be in my life. So yes, to this day, she's still in my life. I talk to her quite often, and sometimes I still make her upset by a lot of things I do or don't say, but I'm pretty sure she's proud of what she's instilled into me and how I became who I am.
Amazing story. I love it when we acknowledge those teachers, because they're so essential to our growth process. So thank you, good doctor, for allowing him to be introduced to this world as a 7th grader. So you're taking this forward from 7th, 8th, and now into high school. Was there an opportunity there that you will remember that you were able to use this skill taught to you in 7th grade in high school?
Yeah, when I was in 10th grade, when I got to 10th grade, that's when I kind of started being introduced to the idea of the career of a journalist. Like I wasn't, it still wasn't very prominent to me. I wasn't realistic or tangible growing up in South Florida when you're surrounded. I mean, I feel like I lived in the suburbs. I didn't, really didn't I ain't live in the hood or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, my mom, we had a pool. Our apartment was overlooking a pool and a lake in South Florida. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like I was living in the hood or anything, but I had knucklehead friends, and I was a knucklehead, and I followed a lot of them and doing certain things. But so I got in trouble sometimes here and there. And so what I saw, what was tangible to me though, even though I wasn't living in a bad area or anything like that, what was tangible was the sight of people I knew who were drug dealers, or people who I knew who were doing schemes and doing this and doing that. So like I saw that as a very tangible thing at the time, but I still wasn't trying to do it. But I was like, man, I could do that easier than I can become a film director or anything like that, But it wasn't until this in my 10th grade year, I was working for the high school newspaper, and I was writing, and I was, certain stories that I did got some notoriety and stuff like that about, I was writing about marijuana in high school. I was writing about like, Carter G. Woodson in high school. I was writing about like, AIDS. My first article I ever wrote about in the high school newspaper was about AIDS and about like teenagers getting AIDS. And we were doing research about that and stuff like that. And so that's what I was on when I was in 10th, 9th and 10th grade. And then I applied for this program at the University of Miami, which was funny that you mentioned that, University of Miami. And they only selected like 16 people in the state to go to University of Miami and learn about journalism. But the 16 kids had to create their own tabloid and their stories. And we were like learning how to put a newspaper together. And that was pretty awesome, because from that summer at University of Miami, for the next 2 years, in my junior and senior year, I worked as an intern for the Miami Herald. And I don't know if Miami Herald does it today, but like I didn't know of any other high school kid having bylines in the Miami Herald, in high school. You know what I'm saying? It was probably one of the first times that they allowed it, because I kind of pushed it, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot of lessons, working for the Miami Herald. I wasn't getting paid, obviously, but I was intern there. I was leaving school early and going to work in the newsroom. And this was around the time of the O.J. Simpson trial and TWA plane crashes. So I worked in the newsroom around very huge stories and very, seeing how things were working. I got that knowledge while I was in high school. And then those were the times when I started believing that I could really have a career in this. Like, this is what I could do. I could be in this world. I could do this. I could tell stories, truthful stories. But it wasn't until in the 11th, I think it was in 11th grade or 12th. I think it was in the 12th grade. It was my senior year of high school. I was writing these stories about student life, and for some reason I found myself writing consecutive stories about people I knew were killed in Miami. It was like 2 or 3 people. It was like one in particular was Sabine Solomon, who was a 14, 15-year-old young girl. She was a twin, and she was the quietest but nicest young girl in high school. And she was just so fun and awesome. And she worked at KFC, and she was killed during a robbery. And I wrote a story about it in high school, in the newspaper. And at the same time, I had a side job working at Blockbuster Video back in the day. For young folks who don't know what Blockbuster Video is, it was basically Netflix in the physical form of a brick and mortar. But it was Blockbuster and chill back then. So, but Blockbuster, I was working at Blockbuster, and because my name is spelled Ryon, not many people spell Ryon. This lady came up to the counter and she was like, "Are you, does your dad work for the Atlanta Journal? I mean, not the Atlanta Journal, but does your dad work for the Miami Herald?" And I was like, "No, I write for the Miami Herald. I do, you know." She's like, "I read your story about Sabine Solomon and I shared it with my kids and this and that, this." And it was like the first time that I met somebody that read one of my stories and was affected by it. And so at that moment, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this for a living. You know what I'm saying? Because even if it was just one person that read the story, they shared it, so it kind of went, further from that. So anyway, that was, how I was introduced in the idea of having a career in journalism and print journalism at that. Like I was focused on print journalism. I wasn't focused on documentaries. I wasn't focused on. I was focused on writing for a newspaper. So.
Wow. So from now you're about to transition to after high school, and you're interning at the Miami Herald. Did you particularly go to a college or go straight to work? You went to college. Where did you go to college? What did you study?
I went to Clark Atlanta University, and I studied. I was a mass comm major, and concentration was print journalism at the time. And so, and I started school in, again, aging myself, but it's all good. I started school in 1996, and I was humbled because I got, hopefully kids could get this humility that I was served on a dish in 1996. So I come to college. I come to Atlanta where my brothers were living, and we all knew we wanted to stay in the same city. And I come to Atlanta. I always wanted to work for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I knew about the history of the newspaper. I knew about the importance of the newspaper in the South. It was one of the only one of the only Southern newspapers with a very strong side on civil rights. It was very strong on civil rights, but it missed opportunities in the past, and it made no organization is perfect, but its publisher and editor, Ralph McGill, was very on the, boisterous about the times, and so those things were what brought me to Atlanta as well. And so when I was 18 years old, starting college, I decided to try to see if I could get a job at the newspaper. And thinking that I was hot shit, excuse my language, I came to Atlanta during the biggest moment in Atlanta's history, which was hosting the 1996 Centennial Olympics. And I thought that because I worked at the Miami Herald when I was in high school, I was this boy prodigy, and that for sure they gonna want me to work for them. They want me to work for them. Hadn't stepped a foot in college yet. Hadn't stepped a foot in a college classroom. Didn't know nothing about nothing. And I came there thinking I was going to get a job. And Angela Tuck, who was the recruiter at the time, she looked at me and she was like, "Boy, if you don't get out," no, she didn't say it like that, but she was like, "Go get some experience, boy." And she gave me her business card, and I held on to her business card. I don't even know how I got into the building. Like, I can't remember how I got into the building, which had security, and I got upstairs and I was in her office, and that's where we had to meet. I don't even know how I did that, but I just knew I was going to get a job. And she was like, "No." She was like, "Get from around here. This is one of the biggest newspapers in the country. You got to have at least like 5 to 6 years of experience after college with other newspapers before you can even think about coming to this newspaper, because that's how big it is." And so I was like, all right. So I walked out of there, and I was like, I went to college for a couple of years and hit our hard times. I was like, I got to try again. And 3 years later, while, my junior year, starting my junior year of college, I, called her up and asked her if she had anything. I'll do anything. And she said, yep. And she gave me a job as a clerk, which was answering phones and passing out people's mail. This is when, people actually opened up mail. and I was a clerk, and that's how I started at the newspaper. It was like on my junior year of college in 2000. I was just a clerk, and a couple months later, everybody knew I wanted to be a journalist. So it was like all I needed was someone to crack the door open, and I'll take care of the rest. And that's what Angela Tuck did for me. Again, another woman who put that stone in front of me to step on. You know what I'm saying? And so, but yeah, that's how I got into the newspaper.
Oh, wow. So you're working as a clerk. You're in your junior and senior year at Clark Atlanta University, and now you're about to graduate.
Mm-mm.
How did you?
No, I didn't graduate.
Oh.
No, I didn't graduate because here's the reason why I didn't graduate. I was a single parent, and I had to make money. And so I started at the newspaper like making $9 an hour, $7 an hour, or something like that, as a clerk. And once there was a job opening, I felt like I had put some time in. They knew how serious I was, even though how young I was. I was only like 21 years old. And but everyone knew how serious I was about the job and about the business and stuff like that. And so they gave me an opportunity, and they hired me on the copy desk of the feature department. And so I went from making like $8,000 a year, to 20. I think my first salary was like 27, almost $30,000 a year, something like that. And at that time, being 21, being offered $30,000, I was balling. and so the thought process for me at the time, I don't suggest this to everybody, but like the thought process to me was at the time was like I was in the door. I got the job where they don't even look at you at this time in 2000. They were not even looking at you if you graduated from college. You could not come get a job at the newspaper as a graduate from college. You had to go to other smaller markets and work there first before you came to a market like Atlanta. And so I figured I just skipped 3 years of business, 3 years of work, and I'm gonna get I'm gonna get in the field training right now and learn the business right now. And I made the decision to not go back to college, and to work full steam in the business. And that's what I did.
What an opportunity. I can hear your grandmother's prayers still praying for her children.
Yeah.
Covering you. So you're now working full-time at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Do you remember a particular story that was challenging and somehow you just pushed through, or what was that process in your role?
Oh man, that's 23 years of business right there. I've been at the newspaper for 23 years now. And as you could think of, if you just think of all the big stories and all the big breaking news stories and all the big things, I might have not, there's a lot that I had nothing to do with, or had nothing to be a part of, but just living through those stories and seeing my coworkers work through those stories is an experience in itself, and obviously for me, one of the biggest stories of having to experience, especially early on, and seeing how a newspaper works, how a news organization gets through it, was 9/11. You know what I'm saying? Seeing how the tension, even though we're in a city that's way far away, the uncertainty of what was going to happen, and stuff like that, seeing how we have to work and try to get these stories out, be objective, not be overturned by our emotion of the opportunity of the moment and stuff like that, and seeing how all these great news giants in our newsroom was working that day, it was something that'll never leave me. Seeing how we as a newspaper got through the pandemic, I'm saying, as recent as the pandemic, how we still had to inform the public and inform the community and try to be out there and serve in that way and give the information that, solid information. And we can't, not going on just hearsay or really talking to the experts, trying to get through that time was a moment. And then working on projects like the Imperfect Alibi, working on an investigation and then seeing the result of that investigation happening as you're shooting, as you're working, as you're telling the story is probably one of the most amazing things in this business. So like, we were working on a story about a guy who's been charged with, or a guy that's been convicted of a double murder. His name is Dennis Perry in South Georgia. He was accused and convicted of murdering 2 Black people in a small church in South Georgia. A white man. This is a white man, and it was kind of a rush judgment, and they convicted him. He was serving 20 years, and then to be in the courtroom after our reporter Joshua Sharp does all this incredible reporting, and because of his reporting sparks the interest of the GBI, helps them to get this trial brought to a judge who overturned his conviction, Perry's conviction. Being in the courtroom for that, hearing the judge say he's to be released today, and then rushing to the prison where Dennis is and seeing him walk out the gates all in one day was like, that stuff just doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? So that's things like that in this business is why we do it, to see results like that,
Do you find that you and your brothers take stories that you are introduced to as a documentarian, not as a journalist, because you work in that space, merge those stories and you all find a way to share those stories from your work? Or how does that work? You're full-time at AJC and you're co-owner of the Horne Brothers, LLC, the film company. So how are you balancing?
I don't know, but we've been doing it for quite some time. I don't know how I balance it. I balance it with a lot of like respect of the craft and understanding the one, I can't overstep whatever I do. I can't overstep truth and stuff. And so like, as far as the Horne Brothers and AJC, that's been separated by the fact that for the Horne Brothers, the stuff that I do for them really has nothing to do with the AJC, in the sense of like the stories that we tell. Like our first documentary with the Horne Brothers was our first like full feature was The Start of Dreams. And that was a documentary that was developed from knowing and working with quite a few people in the theater industry. We told the story of Broadway director Kenny Leon and August Wilson in the monologue competition. And so we told that story, and we told that with, over 3 years, and and followed those stories, and it was the introduction of like, no, let me cut that. It wasn't the introduction of anything. We were just telling the story of something, and it was awesome at the time. And we did that story. We've worked on a lot of things with like Chris Tucker. That documentary got us to do a lot of other things around the world. Like, like I said, with Chris Tucker, we went around the world with him on tour. He ended up doing a live show on Netflix. It got us to do live shows with like, Funk Jazz Cafe, Jason Orr and his documentary, Diary of a Decade. Got us to do comedy specials with people like Barry Brewer, and he's great. He's like on the show Brother, and he's incredible talent. We've done so many different things. So, and then we mostly in entertainment fields, you know what I'm saying? Like arts and entertainment fields is what the Horne Brothers do a lot of, like whether it's music videos and story ideas, like narrative stories, narrative films. We have a short film on YouTube called Invasion, and it stars Roger Mitchell, who is a profound, incredible actor. He's in a lot of different things, and that was the story of a man who was defending his home from 3 invaders, and they had to prove to him why he should let them live. And so it's really awesome. We had a great cast and crew for that. And then we tell stories like you know, we also work on a lot of pilot stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of TV pilots and projects and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff we do with the Horne Brothers are things that, you know, we're trying to get like on TV and theaters and stuff like that. And now the way that that has spilled in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution work and the journalism work is because you have things like Netflix and Hulu with original content of documentaries, and the big thing is documentary series and documentaries and all these different things. That's how we approached projects like Imperfect Alibi, where we had an incredible story that was just so wonderfully investigated by our coworker Joshua Sharp, who now is an investigator for investigative reporter for San Francisco Chronicle. But we had this incredible story that he worked on for almost a year. And once Tyson and I, my oldest brother, who works with me at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Tyson and I came away from this story that was just talked to us about, and we were like, "Yo, let's do this the right way. Let's do this as if somebody's watching a Netflix special," and meaning the style of shots, the style of the approach of interviews, the approach of how we tell a story, interweaving things, the music. We had at the time we did Imperfect Alibi, the film The Joker just came out like a year before that, or a couple months before that, and the sound of the Joker with the cello was just very daunting and creepy to me, and told a very sad story. And so we had wanted a cellist to tell this story as the composing and the score of the Imperfect Alibi. So we got with an incredible cellist named Okori Johnson, who is just phenomenal. And this is during the pandemic, so we had to record. We couldn't go to a studio. We recorded it in his living room, and he watched the documentary and played the scenes, and we were talking about how we wanted to do. And we did that for a documentary story for a newspaper. You know what I'm saying? So that's how, if we want to say, how do you balance or how do you take that? It's like Tyson and I and Byron as well, because that was for Imperfect Alibi. Byron, the newspaper hired Byron to help me with the Doctors and Sex Abuse Project, which was a national investigation about how medical boards hide or readjust doctors and reassign them if they were accused of sexual misconduct. This happened in 2016, which ended up being a finalist for a Pulitzer. And Byron and I we worked for a whole year interviewing people all around the country who were either sexually assaulted by doctors, who investigated doctors, who defended doctors, and doctors themselves who were accused of sexual misconduct. And this was before this was before the Me Too movement, where we were doing this investigation with the absolute best investigative team in the world, to me, at the newspaper. I mean, when I tell you the best investigative team, they were incredible. So that's how the Horne Brothers kind of take our cinematic look on how to tell real stories without diminishing at all the truth within those stories. You know what I'm saying? We don't sacrifice the truth to be cinematic. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes some of the documentary stories that are told now may kind of do that to have more of a cinematic feel, but we feel like truth is truth, and you don't need to embellish it, you know, to tell a cinematic story. Truth is truth, you know what I'm saying? So that's how we kind of mix the both.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes. The truth is truth. And I'm thinking of, how do you go through your process? You're living in this great space, being able to balance working at the AJC and working with your brothers. It's a family affair, and this is such a cool space for you to be in. And I'm just happy that those who are listening can connect to an artist like yourself and see that you can do this. You can be over here and be successful throughout. So if you would, can you share what's a day in the life of you? Like, if you receive a project or some story that you need to cover, like, how do you go through your day?
Boy, no day is the same. I could tell you that much. Even like today, I had to figure out. I was joking with you before we started recording. I'm figuring out like how do I take care of like family stuff, and we have like I had to update my editor, our managing or my manager at the newspaper on all the stories that we're doing, and so before I got on the call with you, I'm like going through at least one, two, three, four, five, six different stories that we have ongoing that we're working on. Incredible stories. And so I just have to like figure out, like I have to prioritize by first deadline. You know what I'm saying? Like we gotta, we have a deadline. Every news organization have a deadline. Then we got to prioritize by what's in the news right now. Obviously the biggest news right now in America is yes, ma'am. And so even waking up this morning, I I was alerted that, um, I saw the press conference that former President Trump did yesterday after his indictment or after his arraignment, and I watched it, and I knew that he talked about Fonnie Willis, the Fulton County DA, and that ongoing investigation, and he kind of like went on about that. And so I got up this morning, and the first thing I'm seeing is, where's the interviews you did with Fonnie Willis? You know what I'm saying? It's like, and so we need to put it. It's like, and I'm like, oh yeah, we did 2 long interviews with her about this case. You know what I'm saying? So we had to bring that back up. So because that was the last time we had a face-to-face with her talking about her process and what's happening and what's going to go on with this investigation. So that could interrupt my entire morning if I had plans to work on these other 6 projects. You know what I'm saying? So I just got to be as flexible as possible with the news of the day, or whatever happens, and then stuff like that. And then I got a 15-year-old kid at the crib. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, he's full blown teenage. I gotta be mindful of him, and teaching him, and seeing him grow, and being involved, being an involved father and husband. So that my day is never the same, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can see my background. Look how crazy my office is right now. I got like soundboards, I'm moving stuff around, and I got like, all kinds of stuff all over the place. It's like we just got back from South Georgia working on a project 2 days ago. It's like my stuff is all over the place. I can't even show you over there. So it's just it's hectic, but I have to be as organized as possible, to get through things. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, one of the things where you just got to learn. I'm still learning after 20 plus years in the business.
And speaking of soundboard and equipment, are there particular tools that you have to have as you're doing your work so that students who are listening can look out for these tools and maybe add it to their toolbox?
Yeah, I think the biggest tool beyond anything is learning how to tell a story. That's a big thing, because I could take my iPhone and I could tell a story though. I could do it. I could tell an incredible story with an iPhone and a good microphone, some good audio. You know what I'm saying? You got to have good audio.
What type of audio do you?
It really doesn't matter as long as it's good audio. Meaning, if you got one of them really good Zoom recorders, or using your iPhone as an audio and stuff like that. They have microphone assets for your iPhones or for your mobile devices and stuff like that. It's just always making sure that you have good audio. Good audio isn't like, like even these are Zoom. I use this for my Zoom calls because I know you're recording this, but it's like most Zoom meetings aren't recorded, but I still want people to be able to hear me good. You know what I'm saying? So audio is key, and knowing the tools of composition and exposure, and you include all those things in your storytelling. People won't get a jerk reaction when they see something that doesn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? When you're trying to tell a story, but the audio is not good, or you're trying to tell a story, but the camera's out of focus, or you're trying to tell a story and the too much light, or there's no light. You know what I'm saying? It's learning all those things is important to tell a story visually. you know. But as far as equipment, there's so much equipment out there to use. There's portable equipment, but there's so many different things out there that you could use. We actually use, because we were just upgraded not too long ago. We actually use like red Komodos, and they on the more pricey side of things. But we also use Canon R5s. Use a lot of Canon cameras. We use Panasonic cameras. We don't use Sony as much, and I know people are is the Sony cameras are being, I can't remember the exact model of it, but they're becoming more affordable and they have a good look, and you could do a lot of cinematic things with it. So yeah, there's so many things when it comes to equipment. It just matter. The most important thing is your storytelling, I think, more than anything.
All right, people, you heard it. Learn to tell a story. Forget the expensive equipment. Your biggest tool is the skill of telling a story. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I see these 2 Emmy Awards behind you. Can you share with us the projects and just that moment of receiving the award? What was that like?
So the one of the Emmys is for the Imperfect Alibi that we were talking about earlier, and the other one was my first one, was on a short documentary we did called Bronco Goes to Camp, and that was about a young kid named Bronco who, when he was 10 years old, had a heart transplant, and he went to summer camp for the first time. As a 12-year-old. And so it was just like this coming of age type story of him being at camp with other kids who had some type of heart defect, and he was able to like take his shirt off for the first time and show his scar. Or he fell, and he kind of fell for this girl at the dance and stuff like that. And he's like, but it was just this kid who was at first bounded by the unfortunate natural defect of a defected heart, but was given a second chance, and then it shows him how he could become how he could just live a life as a regular kid. And it was awesome because when we were doing that documentary, we had interviewed a lot of different people to talk about him and talk about the life. And then as I was editing the film, I was like, man, I know all these people. We did all these interviews with all these people, but I really just want to hear him. You know what I'm saying? And so we did an interview with him, and he told us his story. He has this, at the time, he had this really raspy, deep voice for a 12-year-old. And it was like, and you just hear his voice telling the story of how he, went to camp for the first time. It was really awesome. So that was the first Emmy that I won, and I didn't know that newspapers could win Emmys, but at the time, but we did, and it was featured on Channel 2 Action News at the time, and it was a great experience. It was really awesome. It was first time my wife was like, I took her to the ceremony, and she got all dolled up, and she was like, I think it was the first time my wife looked at me, and she was like, man, you really know what you're doing, huh? Like, she always knew that I knew what I was doing, but it was like one of them like affirmations of like, man, this is serious business, So it was a cool moment to see her like, man, my man got an Emmy, And so that was fun, yeah. But
you have 2 Emmy Awards. What would be your next level of your goal? What would you like to have happen next?
Ooh, man, the hardest. What's funny is as proud as I am of the Emmys, and as you see, they right next to my mama. As proud as I am of the Emmys, it's funny because if I had a resume, I think the resume, the first thing would say, like, if we're talking about awards and stuff like that, I think the first thing would say like the Pulitzer finalist. Like, we didn't even win that, you know what I'm saying? But like being a finalist for a Pulitzer was like, oh man. So, in this business, the Pulitzer is like the Oscar, you know what I'm saying? It's like the Oscar. And so, again, like, it's funny because I always have these conversations, especially with my brothers. My brothers, they're like such artists, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially Tyson, he's like such an artist, and in the sense of like, you don't do You don't do the work for the achievements, which you don't. You know what I'm saying? And so he has no cares whatsoever about any type of accolades and stuff. He just does the work, and that's awesome. But
but
as a kid, I was always like, I was always fascinated with the Oscars. I was always fascinated with the Oscars, no matter who. I could tell you so many things about the Oscars. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, I understand the pull and the fight, whether we should care about things like that or we shouldn't. We shouldn't hold our truth to that. But it's kind of like saying to a NFL player, do you really care about the championship at the Super Bowl? You know what I'm saying? It's like, so you ask LeBron James why he's still playing after 20 years. Do you really care about winning another championship? And he's going to look you dead in your eyes and say, hell yeah, I want that championship. Even though I already got 4, I want that championship. That, I think that is with like every profession. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all professionals want, like, that's their achievement. That's their, crowning jewels. Like, of course, everybody wants some type of award, but they don't, people don't do it just for that. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, my crowning achievement at the time was just to tell a story and just to, I didn't know you get awards for this type of storytelling. You know what I'm saying? Like as a kid, like I didn't know you get those accolades and stuff like that. But if I don't win anything ever again or don't get, it's like the fact that I could tell a story of protesting in Atlanta and tell it from a point of view that's never been told. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or telling the story of John Lewis, or of visualizing, showing himself, not himself, but showing the saying goodbye of people like John Lewis, and interviewing Andrew Young in his home, or seeing the Pope come to the States for the first time, or interviewing Barack Obama during his campaign, and like doing, those are the type of achievements that like I got into, because you're a journalist to chronicle history and to inform the community about things that you think that they should know about. You know what I'm saying? And that's like the achievement of things. You know what I'm saying? That's like the true achievement, that nobody could question those stories that we've done, that we've worked on. Nobody could say, oh, well, you didn't do it right. Or it was informative. It did the job of what journalism or what storytelling is. And that's, if I could just do that, I'm cool. And I guess that's what makes me kind of like my brother, who he don't care about none of them things. You know what I'm saying? All he cares about is like, what's the story? And that's my look at it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's like, we just started getting these. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing this for 30, almost 30 years, and this just started getting into the picture. But so yeah, that's how it is. I know that's a long answer, but that's
No, that's great, because I mean, as I'm listening, I'm hearing all these nuggets of advice that you're passing to the listeners. So yes, it's all received, and thank you for just sharing it. So we're going to move to the last segment, and it's just like a quick response, short answers. Some of them are short answers, others are just fun and just allows us to get to know you as an individual a little bit better. So I'm going to ask these questions. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Window or aisle seat?
Oh, aisle seat all day long.
What book would you give as a gift?
Ooh. Now I would do the new book by Ernie Suggs, that tells the story of Andy Young, Ambassador Andrew Young. It's just out. It's out now. Oh man, where is it? I think it's upstairs. No, it's a book by Ernie Suggs, and it's the story of Andrew Young. So yeah, it's out there.
Okay. What movie can you not resist watching if it came on right now?
Goodfellas.
All right, what's your favorite?
Or Rocky.
Goodfellas or Rocky?
Uh-huh.
Both classic, fantastic films. Yes, I love those movies. What is your favorite recipe to cook?
Oh man, I'm the worst cook in the world. Wings. I can make some good wings.
What flavor?
I like don't say ill, but I like buffalo, like barbecue like barbecue hot sauce. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a barbecue sauce with spiciness to it.
Okay. You
Mhm.
found made some good wings. I love some wings. I thought
Mhm.
you lemon pepper wet.
Nah, you know what's funny is I know this is unblack of me, but I used to love lemon pepper, but I'm all right. I'm all right with the lemon pepper. I like hot. I like hot barbecue.
Okay.
I know that's the white side of me, probably. I don't know.
What is your favorite word?
I don't know if I could say it on here.
Okay, Lord, we go. PC. We'll keep. Next question. What makes you laugh the most?
My kids, they're hilarious. My kids are hilarious, especially the boy. He is hilarious.
Okay. What would be your theme song or entrance song of you going into the room? Like, well, this is me. People should know this is Ryon Horne entering the scene.
All right, this is a good one. This is a good one. Okay. The one that I know for certain is weird. It would be Unbelievable by Notorious B.I.G. That's just the most coldest flow I've ever heard on a track before. I'm nobody could touch that. That song was done 30 years ago, and if it came out today, it would murder every single rapper that's out right now. That's just me. So there's that song. My brothers would say anything with Jodeci, like anything. Like my brother, that's what my brothers would say. Anything that has to do with Jodeci, so it'd be like, "Oh yeah." That's when I walk out there. When I walk in the room, it'd be KC, with his shirt off, and that'd be like that was me back in the day. Yeah, exactly. Jodeci all day long. Yeah, but yeah.
So you're walking into the room and you have part of Notorious B.I.G. playing. You have some of Casey
Mhm.
JoJo singing Birth Not
Hey,
Theme.
yeah, man. That's me all day. 90s baby, all day long. I wasn't a 90s baby. I was a teenager in the 90s. That's just the thing. You know what I'm saying? Teenager in the 90s were the best. It created all the culture that we know today. Think
In
about it.
Miami, Florida at
Yeah,
that.
but not even like, but just period. Like when you think about what hip hop is, I don't care what nobody says. What hip hop culture is today is based off of what the 90s created as signature cultural movements. I don't care what nobody says. Think about all the biggest people in the world right now when it comes to this culture. They all came from the 90s, period. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I know I completely agree because in the 90s was it. All right, next question. What would be your superpower? If you could choose just one, what would it be?
Yeesh. Duplication.
Oh, okay. Duplication. Ryan's over here, Annie's over here, and yes, he's doing all the work. I love it. What is your favorite? No, I'm not going to ask that because I know we have some children listening. But who is your favorite person to follow on social media?
Who's my favorite person to follow on? Oh, it's Jazz, the young girl who interviews all the celebrities. She is the best person on Instagram. What's her name? I'm gonna tell you right now. She is the awesomeness. Let me see. Her name is Jaslyn, aka Jazzy, and she's from Brooklyn, and she's a reporter and actress, and she be interviewing all these people, and she is the best. She did an interview with and she'll be asking intuitive questions. She'd be like, what best advice you have for kids who want to be billionaires, Jay-Z? It'd be like stuff like that. But she is awesome. I love her content. And I spoke to her parents one time, like just complimenting them, and she's awesome. They're awesome.
I'm looking at her. She looks pretty young. I see her here with
Yes.
them.
So I think her dad records her, like all of her interviews and stuff like that. And like she got interviews with J. Cole and Michelle Obama, and like she went to Fashion Week. She on here with KD. She's awesome to watch on like just her interviews are so cool.
Oh, that's great, especially to those who are listening, wanting to enter this space of photojournalism or just, document. Yes, go follow this girl. I've never heard of her, but I'm going to follow it today.
It's Jazzy. It's Jazzy's World TV. JAZZYSWORLD TV. Really fun stuff.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Next question. When you think of the word successful, who is the first person that comes to your mind?
My mom. My
Wonderful.
mom. I only say that because her success was what she did for this family, and I think her success came from being the product of being born immediately after World War II, and being living in Austria, and having to come from a pretty much an enemy state, and coming to America, and her family, my grandparents, creating a life for her and her sisters. And then you got to understand, this is a white woman who fell in love with a black man after World War II, where the man who killed millions of people came from her country. You know what I'm saying? This is like something that she is part. So that was one thing, you know what I'm saying, where like my mom didn't care about like what the norm was or what people said that she should do or how she should live. And she went to Woodstock and she did all these things, and she had 3 black boys, you know what I'm saying? And so her success are her 3 black boys, you know what I'm saying? Her 3 kids that she raised and taught how to be fathers, and taught how to be men of value, and take care of the kids. And she left us and she had 11 grandkids, and they're all incredible kids. Right now we're pushing 5 out of those 11 kids are either finished with college or going to college or in college right now. And then she got 6 more to go that haven't gotten to college yet. So yeah, that's my mom. She's successful.
Amen to that. We love it. If you could offer yourself one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Don't take it personal. It's not that serious. They weren't. I was be like, they weren't. I think I think part of that is having grace for people. You know what I'm saying, and like, or having mercy for people in the sense of, not being upset so quick. You know what I'm saying, and not thinking somebody's doing something to you just because it's you. You know what I'm saying. Being mindful of people and what they do around you, but not taking things so personal, and understanding that people might have not meant what they meant when they said it, but then, at the same time, you got to be like, be protective of, of respect, and making sure people do respect you. But I think that comes with how you conduct yourself,
Awesome. So some final thoughts before we come to the end of the segment. What projects are in the future for you?
Oh man, the one hard part about this business, especially with documentaries, is I can't talk about it until it's done. It's so many different projects that we work on. And so since we're in a world where, like, if I talk about it, another person might be like, oh, let's go do it. Let's go do the same thing. So they do it all the time. I mean, like, a great case in point is, and this is advice. This goes to advice. It's like, you don't want to share everything that you're doing with people, because sometimes the people that you share it with might not see it as you being inspired by your own work, but they might see it as like bragging, or they might want to do something to hinder you from doing it, right? So sometimes you got to keep projects to close to the chest. But I give a great example of that is, there's 2 different documentary series that are on streaming services right now telling the same story, and that's the Murrow case, one on HBO and one on Netflix, and it's like, somebody must have heard them and did it. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I say. Just kind of keep those projects to yourself when they're closer to being done. But as of right now, yeah, it's like 7. Just know that there's like seven banging stories that are about to come out, so I'm really excited about that.
All right. Well, as we're coming to the end, would you like to give some shout outs to those who have been supportive of you on the journey?
Oh, everybody knows that I've done nothing by myself. So it's like
coming in.
Hey, Ma.
Just wrapping it up. I'm sorry about that.
That's like,
but yes, we'd like to give some shout outs to those who have been supportive of you on your journey.
No, definitely the family, definitely my brothers and my parents, and I think the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in a whole of being an institution where they have allowed me to be the type of storyteller that I am, and then my wife who putting up for me for so long. And this is, like I said, we're going on 20 years this year, and man, she's a real success, boy, I'll tell you that much. But so yeah, I'll shout out all those folks and my kids who I am crazy. I'm just crazy in love with all of my kids, my 4 kids.
Wonderful. And final question: how can people learn more about you or follow you on social media for those who want to work?
Definitely, it's I'm Ryon Horne, Ryon, Ryon Horne on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter, which I don't really go on Twitter that much. It's a crazy place. Instagram, Facebook. My website is ryonhorne.com. You can see some of our work on there, and just check us out on ajc.com. A lot of our stuff, a lot of our stories are ajc.com or on our YouTube channel on YouTube, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Awesome. Well, we have come to the end of today's spotlight for Ryon Horne. If this podcast has helped you, please share. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Dream of Drea across all social media platforms. My name is Drea of Dream of Drea, a production company specializing in driving ideas from pages to stages and from your dreams to screens. Remember, wherever you are right now is the perfect time to act on your dreams. Thanks again to Ryon Horne for sharing his journey with you, and we will catch you all next time. Bye, everybody.
See you. Thank you so much.